Hey, welcome to All Things Social Security. You're about to see a question from a live viewer and my response, and it may or may not have an attached additional set of information for you, but you'll see a little invitation to that if that's the case. If what you're looking for is representation and you want us to take a look at your claim, please go to joydisability.com and look in your upper left-hand corner for the link for the free SSD evaluation. And we will take care of that for you. Thank you so much. Bye-bye. Enjoy the video. Hey there. I'm going to try to respond to a complicated fact pattern. It involves interplays between Social Security, disability, retirement, and workers' comp. And I'm going to preface this by saying I don't do workers' comp, and I always defer to my good friend Sharon on that, who's a partner in the Jersey firm. So, but let's get through it because I think it's interesting, and I do think there's some information that will be helpful once we get through it, and I will also grab my notes while I'm doing this. Okay, so here we have a situation, and correct me if I am wrong to the writer of this fact pattern. Gentleman was in a work-related accident many years ago, say over 20 years ago. At that time, received various workers' comp and Social Security disability and retirement, having worked for the state as a state employee. So let's see. Once that state pension kicked in, the workers' compensation payments stopped because there was some sort of interplay between the disability pension payments from the state, however you want to word that, and workers' comp, where you can't get both, or there's probably a certain amount similar to an offset that workers' comp often has with SSD. Okay, so if my understanding is correct, the workers' comp stopped when the state disability kicked in. The SSD did not get altered or amended by the state disability. So that apparently both continued. Now the question is the understanding correct that when the gentleman turned 62, which was recently, that something would change and he would start receiving additional payments from workers' comp? Okay, that part might very well be true. Again, I don't do the workers' comp stuff, so always take that with the grain when we're, and I know we do this a lot. My workers' comp friend knows all the workers' comp stuff, and there's so much in between that is hard to know. From my perspective, I deal with 50 states, so I stay away from the workers' comp because there's 50 states and it's a state program, right? Okay, so everything is kind of generalities, okay? So, okay, so I don't know if the person gets workers' comp back again when the person hits 62, where it was denied them before because they were getting the state disability. Although the irony is, was the workers' comp stopped because of the state pension, or was it stopped because of the SSD and the 80% rule, which would be another kind of offset between workers' comp and this time SSD? So I don't know the answer because I don't know your fact pattern, but it's likely that would have happened if it didn't already happen because of the pension. So either way, right? He ended up getting paid both the disability from the state and the disability from SSD, which is interesting right there, actually. Although maybe not, because he was paying in the SSD, so there was none of that other business that went on last year in something different, where people weren't paying into SS, but then didn't get the offset. Okay, moving on. Okay, so the question is, would Social Security, this might be the big question, convert from Social Security disability to retirement Social Security now that he's turning 62? And would that happen automatically? Okay, that is a big no. No, 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 no. Social Security disability does not turn into Social Security retirement at 62. Imagine if it did. His early 62 retirement is 35% probably less than what his full retirement Social Security would be. So thank goodness that's not the case. the beauty of having prevailed on SSD is that it continues at the full retirement rate, even though it's disability and it's early, all the way till he does get to 60, probably 67 full retirement age. So no, at 62, SSD does not change to retirement. Okay. Let's see if there's anything else in here. Would I be able to help you understand what to expect from the SS side of the house? Only to the extent that your SSD will not convert to Social Security retirements. It will not automatically convert. Now, the other question is, well, can I go ahead and take early retirement, forego the bigger SSD amount forever, which would end up being the full SSR amount in 5 years, be willing to take the 35% cut because if you're saying the workers' comp, if they're saying, I'm not saying this because I don't do workers' comp, if the workers' comp kicks back in due to hitting 62, some workers' comp law that I know nothing about, if that's true, can the person quit the SSD, forgo getting full SS forever going forward, a permanent 35% cut, and only take early retirements at 62 for 35% cut in that, or 30 to 35 or 36, something like that, so that they can get the workers' comp if the workers' comp would now have an offset with the SSD. Whether the workers' comp has an offset with your SSD, I don't know. That's the 80% rule that you would have to, you can ask SS about that. They will tell you whether, what the ACE is, average current earnings. Sharon is really familiar with that stuff. She's actually probably the one that taught it to me. And so if it's early, if one were to take early retirement and forego the nicer SSD and full retirement amount later, in order to get the workers' comp, which apparently if you do the math, maybe it works out better. I don't know. But that would be taking early retirement. And it is my definite understanding that once you do take the early retirement, is my understanding, that workers' comp, and this is something you have to confer with the workers' comp person, if it's early retirement as opposed to SSD, does the workers' comp still have an offset with that ACE business? And I believe that is not true. I'm looking at some of my notes from some earlier research. If I can find them. Hold on. Hold that thought. It is my understanding that the workers' comp offset stops. I'm trying to find it. Forgive. While it would normally end at full retirement age, when the SSD automatically converts to SSR, if you push to take early retirement instead, they're no longer getting Social Security disability. What happens? My notes here are saying that electing early retirement at 62 will not end the workers' comp offset if you're still entitled to SSDI. And that's the funny rub, because apparently some technical errors are made sometimes. What they keep in the fields of saying whether it's early retirement or SSD entitlement is still showing up as being entitled, even if you're not collecting it. That would be a technical glitch, but you get kind of screwed with the result unless you get it fixed. I have here, if SSD entitlement is terminated because the individual elects early retirement benefits and SSA converts the type of benefits properly, then a workers' comp offset would end at that point in conversion, and then you're getting both your workers' comp and your early retirement. That is what I believe is supposed to happen. But because it's a technical entitlement issue, and it seems that there's a lot of mishandles of those conversions from SSD to early SSR, so you'd have to be sure that that gets properly converted. I mean, stay on the SSA staffers, I would think. So the benefit type shown has to actually now say you're getting early retirement and not SSD. So that's really more of a, hey, there's been lots of errors type of warning versus what the law says, which is when you take early retirement benefits, there is no longer an offset. Or if you don't take early retirement and you keep taking regular SSD up to full retirement age, which is presumably 67, then the workers' comp offset would end then too because you switch to retirement, the full retirement, the nicer retirement. So that is my understanding. Of course, there are other ways that the workers' comp offset could technically end, and that would be if, I was just reading it, if the numbers didn't jive anymore and the 80% didn't apply because somehow the ACE was different or the amount of workers' comp got reduced. In theory, we don't have to worry about it with early retirement, but early retirement is always less than SSD. So who knows? That can, remember, the 80% is reflective of the two amounts you're drawing in. Anyway, so that is my understanding. And another thing about it naturally happening where the 80% rule, it no longer applies. Sometimes it's that amortization they do of those lump sum workers' comp awards. So it thins it out. I mean, that's what they're always trying to do, right? So that it doesn't bump into it. But anyway, I hope that's clear. It seems to me that indeed early retirement by law would end the workers' comp offset. SSD, of course, there is an offset. And of course, the offset only applies if you're surpassing the 80% rule. So, I mean, it suggests, and I've never even heard someone do it before, but I've always been curious about it. Would someone, under what circumstances and what monies and what's going on with workers' comp, which again is Greek to me, where it would be worthwhile to take a forever in your life 30% cut in Social Security by taking early retirement to get, you must be getting something far greater, right? And I would also make sure to know whether those workers' comp payments go on literally for the rest of your life. If you know the amount and you know that they have to pay it forever, so you'll always know. I mean, imagine if it was temporary. Well, it only lasts till you're 80. I don't know. And then you live to be 105. But anywho, I hope that kind of covers some of those questions and shows you the parts I don't know that you really have to go delve elsewhere for. But anyway, workers' comp, SSD, and in this case, state pension, all these different interplays gets very complicated. I just try to stick to my pay lane. Have a great one.